In this video, I'm going to be talking about the text tool in XD, which works pretty much the same as it does in Illustrator and InDesign with just a few minor changes. So first, just like in Illustrator, if I drag a box with my text tool, it creates a text area. So the text sort of flows within that area. Whereas if I just click and don't drag an area out, it works as a line. Right, so this works as like more for titles, and this is more for paragraphs, and we can resize this and change the size of the area. And with this one, we're really not changing the size of the area because there isn't an area. It's just a line that's being drawn. Now, the difference between these two is on this one, I can grab the corners and adjust it. I can rotate it. And on this one, I actually don't have any of those tools. The only tool I have is to resize it as being larger or smaller. I'm going to delete both of these and start fresh. So I'm going to just click, and we're going to have a subscribe button. Okay, so I would center that over my rectangle that I've created. And let's look at some of the options on the right-hand side. So we have all of our alignment options, not going to worry about that. We're going to cover the repeat grid in a future video. And down here we have our font, which this supports all of our system fonts. So if you install a font, it should appear here. I'm just going to use Helvetica for now because I like that font. I can choose if there's different options for my font, such as bold or light. So I might do a Helvetica light. Here's the size of the font, which I can also resize just by simply grabbing it here. Since this is really for prototyping, some of the fine detail might be done at a future date. That looks pretty good to me. Here we can choose its alignment, so if it's left, right, or center. This is more for text areas. These two buttons actually convert this to a text area versus a single line. This will underline it. Here we have the tracking, so if I give it 10, it'll increase the tracking. I'm just going to leave that at 0. Here we have the line separation, or the leading, basically. So we don't need to worry about that since we only have one line. And here we have paragraph separation. So if we have multiple paragraphs, this will change the space between the paragraphs. Pretty simple stuff. Below that, we have the appearance settings. So the opacity, the fill, right? This is the fill of our actual font. Just keep that in mind. So we want to get something nice and readable. We have a border. So if we want to give the font a stroke, we can. And we can give it a shadow, just like how we can give everything else a shadow, and even do our cool object blur and background blur options with our fonts. Pretty simple. So let's combine these together and create an asset out of this. So I might adjust this just a little bit so it feels a little more complete. Right, I want to make sure I have a good amount of margin. Now I'm going to grab both of these, and over on my side panel, we've been working with the layers panel, and if I click this little arrow up here, it'll take me to my artboards, but I'll just click back on home for now. So I have both of these selected, and what I want to do is click this button right here, which takes me to the assets panel. And here I can start saving assets, so I can add this to my symbols. So if I click that plus, now that symbol, which I'll just call sub button, is saved within my assets panel. So I can delete this, and at any time I could drag it out and it'll pop back in. Remember, with web design, you're reusing the same assets over and over and over again, so we're going to be using this assets panel constantly. Saved colors will also go in here, and saved character styles. So if I want to select this character style, for instance, so I just have it highlighted, and I click plus, it's going to save, okay, Helvetica New, 80 point, with this color and that kind of line spacing. If I want to save the color, I have it selected, I click that plus, and it saved the color, and even gave me the hex code, which we'll get into later when we're working with HTML and CSS. So just keep that in mind. This is where you're going to build your palette, build your different character styles, just like InDesign, and create symbols just like you do in Illustrator.